Hi, Forticay. This is our last week in our series in Psalm 23, where we're talking about how God is like our shepherd. We're going to find out today that God blesses us. That means God is good and He gives us good things. Psalm 23:5 says that our blessings are like a cup overflowing. And a cup overflowing means that there's so much, it's pouring out of the cup. If you could have a drink overflowing from your cup, what would you pick? Water, juice, maybe lemonade, chocolate milk, or a milkshake? Yum! All right, so maybe our cup is not really overflowing with those drinks, but the Bible does tell us that our cup overflows with blessings from God. In our Bible story today, we're going to find out that Ruth's blessings overflowed. And since we're talking about blessings overflowing, I'm going to need this cup for our story, but I'm going to need some other things too. Hold on just a second. Well, every time we hear a blessing in our story, let's add some water to our cup since we're talking about blessings overflowing. The Bible tells us that Ruth was a friend of God, but her husband had died. Her husband's father had died too. Ruth and her husband's mother, Naomi, were the only ones left in their families. What a sad time. I bet Ruth felt like her cup was pretty empty. Well, Ruth and Naomi decided to move back where Naomi was from. Naomi told Ruth to go to a farm near them and pick up the leftover crops. The crops might have looked something like this. Back then, the farmers would leave a little bit of leftover crops in their field so poor people would have something to eat. The extra food was a blessing to people who didn't have enough money to buy it themselves. And that was a blessing to Ruth, too. While Ruth was picking food, the owner of the farm came to the field. He was nice to Ruth, and that was a blessing to Ruth. The owner's name was Boaz, and when he saw Ruth, he asked who she was. His workers told Boaz how hard Ruth had been working and how kind she had been to Naomi, who was a relative of Boaz. So Boaz told her to keep coming to get food, that she could come back any time she wanted. What a blessing. Boaz actually gave Ruth a meal right then when he was talking to her. Another blessing. Because of all of those blessings, Ruth didn't have to wonder where she was going to get her food from. And then Boaz told his workers to leave extra food for Ruth and water. Well, Boaz actually even tried to get someone to marry Ruth, but that man was not able to marry Ruth. So Boaz married Ruth, and they ended up having a wedding and getting married. And guess what? They also had a baby. And that baby was the great-grandfather of Jesus. God blessed Naomi and Ruth so much that their blessings were overflowing, just like our cup. Let's read Psalm 23, verses 5 and 6. Let's see what it says in our Bible. You serve me a 6-course dinner right in front of my enemies. You revive my drooping head. My cup brims with blessing. Your beauty and love chase after me every day of my life. I'm back home in the house of God for the rest of my life. God is so good to us. What are some blessings that He's given you? Some of mine are my family, my children, my home, the good food that I have on my table. And what are some of yours? God gives us so much good. Sometimes it feels like our hearts are filled up and overflowing with goodness. Let's see if we can make some other containers overflow. Let's experiment. All right, Paisley's going to help me. Let me say hi to your friends.
Hi.
All right, we have 3 containers here. 1, 2, 3. And we're going to try to make our containers overflow because we're learning about how God's blessings overflow. Let's start with some marshmallows. How many marshmallows do you think it would take to fill up and overflow this container?
Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
All of them?
Oh, you think this whole jar?
Yeah.
And this?
Yes.
Okay, well, how many do you think? All right, let's count them out and see. $93 marshmallows. Let's try some pom-poms next. And these are big pom-poms. How many pom-poms do you think it would take to fill up this container and make it overflowing? How many do you think?
10 probably.
10? All right, let's count them out. $14 pom-poms. For our last container, let's use avocados. How many avocados do you think it would take?
2.
2? Let's
Or
see.
maybe 3.
1,
Whoa!
2. Okay, 2 avocados to make our cup overflow. Just like the containers are overflowing, God's blessings can overflow too. Blessings are so good. They're even good when we see other people get them. Let's look at our pasture one more time because this is our last lesson today in our series in Psalm 23. Well, we have learned in Psalm 23 that God is like our shepherd. And as our shepherd, we have learned that God leads us and guides us. He protects us. He gives us rest in green pastures and by still waters. He is with us in dark valleys. And today we learn that He provides for us and gives us blessings that overflow. And blessings make me think of celebration, so let's add some streamers to our pasture. All right, and that brings us to our challenges for this week. Sometimes we forget about our blessings. That brings me to your first challenge this week. Can you add your blessings into your prayer time? You can thank God for the things He's given you, even if you think your blessings are really small. Even thanking Him for the water that you have to drink is something that we can be thankful for. You can even get a container and fill it up with your blessings. Every time you name a blessing that God has given you, why don't you add something to your container or jar and watch how it fills up and overflows. Your second challenge is that this is the final week we are doing our memory verse. Do you know it by now? It's Psalm 23:1. See if you can say it with me. The Lord is my shepherd. I have all that I need. Send me a video when you have it memorized, and I'll send you something in the mail. We'll start a new memory verse next week when we start our new series. I'll see you then.